Now ask yourself this, am I good at handstand push-ups because I can hold this position, or can I hold this position because I'm good at handstand push-ups? That's what we're going to cover today, pausing in calisthenics skills. So we just looked at the bottom of the freestanding handstand push-up. And that's a super important position because that's where we need to change direction. And because it's freestanding, it's a point where a lot of people either fall down towards underbalance or fall over towards overbalance. So building strength, control, balance there, super important, not only to get your first handstand push-up, but to be able to do multiple reps. Let's now look at the bottom of the press handstand. So if I position my hips correctly on top of my hands, I've got enough balance on either side so then I can lift up in this position. So this is the bottom of the press handstand. Again, super important to be able to do multiple repetitions of press handstand or just show great control in one. For that position, we need a combination of balance. So control and balance, strength, conditioning of the position, and also flexibility. All of those combined equals the ability to hold the bottom of the press handstand. For this one, it was strength and balance, not so much flexibility. Now, if we look at the muscle up, we need to be able to hold this top position of the false grip chin up to then be able to transition through to get our full muscle up. So top of false grip, chin up for muscle up. And for that, we need strength, obviously, but we also need a lot of flexibility, not only to hold the position in that false grip, so making sure that you can turn the wrist over and put weight down in the right position, but also in the shoulders, the pecs, and the lats, so you can get over nicely and make that movement as efficient as possible. Now, but what's really cool is we can start to break apart these movements and look at the progressions towards them or the progressions past them. But for the muscle up, we need to have a chin up. We need to have a dip. We need to have a top support, which you could argue is the top of the dip, but we also need to have the bottom of the dip. Exactly the same for the chin up. We need to have that top position, that hold. Now excuse the low bar, but that's all I've got set up. So to be able to do a chin up, I need to be able to hold this top position for some amount of time. And there's actually a really good progression for the chin up because I can hold here for time and then I can lower for an eccentric with control all the way down to that bottom position. I can't get to it now with my extremely long arms, but obviously the hang position is the bottom of your chin up or pull up. Now, another thing to start to think about is not just the hold position, but the correct hold position. If I'm doing a chin up, I want to try and open the chest up as much as I can, have the chest touching. But in that bottom position, I need to make sure that I can not only hold a passive hanging position, but I can also hold an active position. So conditioning the bottom of positions or the top of positions is also really important depending on the skill you're working on. And you also find a lot of these positions carry over to multiple skills. So something like our top support, you could be doing, because you're doing dips, now whether that's parallel bar dips or single bar dips like that. Ring dips, obviously we need to condition it first on a bar and then move over to the rings. Our top position of the handstand push-up and the top of the press handstand are obviously the same, and interestingly the movement needs to be the same. So check this out, I'm going to do a handstand push-up. So I'm going to start in this position and I initiate the movement by bringing the shoulders forwards, feet back, then I start the handstand push-up and then from there I can come back up, reposition the shoulders. Watch the press handstand. Shoulders come forwards, now my legs come down to that bottom position, pause for a second, come back up, shoulders go back. So this position is used for the start, the initiation of the handstand push-up and the press handstand. It's also just a really good position to condition. If I have a gap, if I can't do that, then it's going to make my handstand balance window very, very small. I'm going to fall out of the top of the press handstand and the top of the handstand push-up. So some movements are going to be specific, the bottom of the handstand push-up, the bottom of the press handstand, but some of them are going to cover multiple skills. So if you're newer to calisthenics or just feel like you've got lots of gaps, it's worthwhile going back and just checking those foundations and making sure that you can hold a protracted position in the scapula. So that would be really important. If we're working just basic push-ups, we need to be able to go down into retraction, and push up into protraction. If you can't do that on your toes, you need to learn and mobilize the area on your knees first. Or you can just raise the hands up like you would do in an incline push-up. But having good protraction there is going to lead on to other things like planche variations and anything where you're pushing with straight arms. I've spoken already about that top support position, a hang position, both in active and passive, the elevation or depression of the shoulder blades. And if our goals are skill related around the handstand, we need to make sure that we can hold a handstand position initially against the wall and then freestanding depending on our goals. Because you don't want to be going into handstand positions and look like this. We need to make sure that we can push up nice and strong. So then when we do the freestanding version, it's going to be much, much easier to learn balance on top of a active, strong position and not this. Now, any of these positions, whether they're skill specific or general positions, we ideally want to be able to hang out there like they're home positions. So we can hold a conversation here, we can even rest a little bit before we go into something that's more taxing and harder to hold. Then we can return back to our home position and rest there a bit before going into our next movement that might challenge us a bit more. So filling as many of these gaps as possible is going to make learning the skills much, much easier. And remember, they can be changed depending on the skill, but also on the level. So if you're working towards a freestanding handstand push-up, you're brand new to this style of training, you might be working on the bottom of your push-up to start with. Make sure this is nice and strong. The top of your push-up, whether that's on your toes or on your knees. Or if you're a little bit more conditioned, you might be doing the same thing, but a pike push-up. Holding here for time. So have a look at the skills that you're working towards, have a think about where your gaps are, and then things should make sense where you might be struggling with certain movements, and try and integrate this thought pattern into your training reps and sets. If you'd like to support the channel, thumbs up and subscribe really helps, and I'll speak to you in the next one.